So when I was 5 years old, that is me, I was a pretty energetic kid, and I started to get very tired, and my mom noticed that I was, just complaining all the time about being tired, and I wasn't really eating very much, and my breathing started to get heavy, and I started to wheeze. So my mom knew that something was wrong with me, and so in November, when I was 5 years old, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I was in the third stage. By the time they caught it, I actually went to the doctor a few times. My mom knew something was wrong. They didn't catch it right away. So I went through a pretty standard process in terms of having cancer. Know that cancer is pretty common nowadays. I'm sure there's even people in this room who had dealt with this or had a family who've dealt with somebody with cancer. And so, I had chemotherapy, and I lost all of my hair, and I was a Make-A-Wish kid. So we went to Disney World, and that's me and my sister, Chip and Dale, which were our favorite at the time. And so I went through this whole experience, and I always say that it was a lot more traumatizing for my parents than it was for me. I don't think I really knew what was going on as a 5-year-old. And so my kind of aha about cancer and the connection between the mind and body and all that stuff didn't come until later when I was 14 years old. And so I was 14, and I was asked to give a speech for the Cancer Research Foundation to kids and their families just about my experience, having it and being a survivor. And so it was at that time that I started to wonder what actually happened to me, because I really didn't have much of an idea. So I started asking my mom a bunch of questions, my dad a bunch of questions about what it was like. And I don't even think at the point I really knew it was like cancer stage 3. It was the first time I had really inquired about it. So when my mom started to describe the experiences to me, I remember having this thought like, oh my goodness, thank God I didn't know that as a kid. Like, good thing nobody told me it was cancer. Like, I remember thinking, I'm so glad my mind was preserved in some way. And I started thinking, well, it's very different for adults because doctors don't do that. They tell you everything. They give you every detail. You hear the word cancer, it means a whole bunch of things, sends everybody into panic mode because it's such a loaded term. And then you're wondering all the ifs, ands, or buts. Am I going to be around for my kids? And then all of those things, right? And that doesn't happen to a kid. And when my mom told me more about it, she said that I actually finished cancer faster than they had ever seen. That the treatment that I was supposed to have was supposed to take 2 years and 3 months, and I finished at a little bit more than a year and a half. And the doctors documented the case because they thought it was going to take much longer. And they said what happened was every time I would get a round of chemotherapy, my body was somehow receptive to the next round a lot faster than what they had expected. They thought I'd need more recovery time in between each of my rounds of chemo. And that wasn't the case. It was kind of like, just was able to get the next treatment. And so my initial reaction to hearing that this is what I had looked something like this. I was like, whoa, like I had no idea that this was the case. And then my first prediction really was, well, I really believe thoughts are real. I think that there was something about my recovery that I never really felt that sad. I never was that scared, and there was something about the mind being preserved. And then the second prediction that I made at the time was that, our health and vitality are being affected by so many other factors that aren't getting enough credit, right? Like, I could say chemotherapy saved my life and the treatment saved, but what about everything else, right? Like I had, my sister, sorry, it gets me a little emotional to say it, but my sister was a year and a half younger than me. She was with me all the time. The effect that has on somebody's spirit as a little kid to always have somebody with them. I grew up in Pleasantville in Westchester. It's a beautiful town, a beautiful community of people. I had tons of support from my teachers. They all came and homeschooled me from the Bedford Road School there. And my parents were so great. And so there was a variety of other factors that I was like, I think that has something to do with our ability, you know, to heal. It's not just about the medications, and it's not even just about eating healthy. There's more things. So that's kind of when that's when I became what I call a well-being nerd. So I really started to just get really interested in all the various topics of things that affect your mind, affect your body and behavior. I was very interested in philosophy and all these things. And so I really gravitated to the research on well-being when that came out, and that's where I met Deepak when I was at Gallup. So